Welcome to the Awakened Parent Project, conscious conversations, empowered parenting with me, Susan Dolci. It's time to open our hearts and our minds to what it means to be a parent, exploring and expanding the ways we communicate, validate, and show up daily for our kids. With a parent-centric focus, you learn to become more present, a better active listener, more reflective, more engaged, and mutually empowered. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. The Awakened Parent Project starts now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm your host, Susan Dolci, and I've dreamed about hosting a podcast about conscious parenting for a really long time. A place where we can have conscious conversations that empower parents and their children. The goal of this show is to help parents become more compassionate and engaged as we share the many techniques and ideologies of the conscious parenting community. I'm a life coach and a student with the Jai Institute for Parenting, and it's my hope that you'll find this a safe space to journey on a path of both practical and spiritual self-exploration. And today we're going to talk about the spiritual exploration part. From the time my first daughter was born in 1994, that's like 27 years ago, I've been driven by a vision where children are nurtured both physically and spiritually by adults who are present, grounded, and empowered. I believe that conscious communication, self-exploration, and especially self-forgiveness are the tools that enable parents to foster deep, lasting connections with their children. Parenting isn't about perfection. I hope we all know that. But it is about presence and honesty and self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. Today, we're venturing into the spiritual side of parenting and something that some people might consider unconventional, and that is spirit babies and life before life. I'm going to ask you to stretch your mind a bit, maybe, to ponder where your baby's soul existed prior to conception, and if it's possible to communicate with that soul before birth. My guest today is Kelly Ann Meehan. Kelly is a spirit baby medium, sharing messages from the spirit of the child before life and after life. She's also a healing visionary, a published author, and a birth advocate. She uses her extrasensory awareness of clairvoyance and clairsentience, unique perceptions, and clinical psychology training to support the hearts of people all around the world that are looking to connect in a deeply spiritual and awakened way. Kelly's also the host and creator of Spirit Baby Radio podcast, and she's been doing that since 2016. And so now you must be well over 100 episodes because you're 100 episodes in November. So congratulations, that's a big win. So welcome, Kelly, to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm just honored and enjoyed to be here. This is my topic. I love it.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. How I found you a couple of years ago, just doing research on pre-birth contracts and spirit baby communication, and I was just like, I was sucked in. I was like, had to know all about it. So let's just talk about what pre-birth communication is, because I'm sure some people are like, what? Like, how can I talk to the soul of my baby? And is it like a special gift? Obviously you have gifts, but is this something anybody can kind of tap into if they follow their heart and their intuition?
Well, absolutely. I feel like more than anything, it is about the parent to be on so many levels and their connection. And what I find is it's either not spoken about because it's, it sounds bizarre or weird, or there's insecurities around it, or it's often misinterpreted. Like there has to be something really specific when you're in communication. And everybody communicates and connects in different ways. And I remember you just reminded me this one time, sometimes when you say the book fell off the shelf, or you're like, what is this? And I don't know. It was like, I have all these Facebook pages. I'm a birth advocate. I belong to so much birth stuff. I'm just so like, oh, there's so much. And then something popped up one time, and it was a group, and somebody was asking about spirit communication. And I was like, what is this? And I'm not kidding. There were hundreds and hundreds of people saying, yes, my son, yes, my daughter. they communicated before. So then it was like, whoa, I was like, this is like amazing. I hear it and see it for years, every single week working with people around the world. But to hear it like in an outside forum and to see that this connection, I feel like is more than this spiritual out there thing. I feel like it's instinctual, right?
Mm.
We're these human creatures and we have this soul and this connection within us. And how would we not have this in between connection and awareness? So I do, yeah, to just to kind of confirm, yes, there's this, people have so many connections, and no matter what, where you live in the world, no matter, it's not about making money or less money or perfect or imperfect. It's just, there's this, again, instinctual, powerful, intimate connection of relationship that can be brought awareness with in that before space. And so I'm hoping I answered that. But even pre-birth communication, I just have to say that term is a general term, but I found out more about it with Elizabeth Hallett, who considers herself to be a pre-birth communication researcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
She's
very
a
familiar.
writer of, yeah. So her books are beautiful, and it's on my list of recommendations because it starts to really open up, I feel like, the portal of
Mhm.
awareness with people. And once we open, but I do feel like, yeah, I see things a little, I have a different extrasensory perception and ability, but also I do feel that's what we're coming back to. I do feel that, yeah, any parent can connect with their child before life, absolutely, and then even after life as well.
So when women come to you, what do they want you to help them with? Like, is it, I know there's so many, from so many different types of preconception. Some women have had miscarriages, some are having infertility issues. I'm sure they come to you with a host of, different experiences. Um, but do you guide them to connect, or do you connect for them?
I actually do a little bit of both.
Mm.
Yeah. And so a lot of the women, the couples that I see tend to be sometimes, let's see, heterosexual, homosexual, single parents, and they come either with natural conception or they're on an IVF journey or they're doing an IUI. I've worked with embryo adoption as well as gestational adoption, or I guess you call it surrogacy,
Mhm.
as well as, child adoption. There's nothing that I haven't met yet. And I actually like a good, off the kind of grid challenge. I'm like, I've had surrogacy recently showing up and it's like, yeah, I'll help you out. Let's see where it goes, because
Mhm.
spirit communication is spirit communication. Whether the child is coming through your womb or somebody else's, we can still build that relationship. And so I really feel like a lot of the people that do come are on a conception journey, I would say, and multiple miscarriages. Sometimes miscarriage is a very big area for me, as well as even later loss of stillbirth, infancy loss as well. And so if there's a baby connection and there's something there, I like to bridge that for people. And they do like to hear the messages. I do get some people very specific, beautiful messages. Others, maybe not so specific, but it's about the parent building that. What are we doing after? And there's a lot of things I do in private work that builds that. I give homework and it's like, what are you doing? And,
Oh,
and
okay.
with the somatic piece, I'm really big into the nervous system, even more now than ever, about where our bodies are. And if our nervous system is dysregulated, it's going to be hard to connect with that psychic and spiritual space if we're living in survival. And so I love to bridge like that embodiment earth body and then doing that in different ways with more of that energetic space as well. So I it's not just about me giving information, though it's fun and people really like that. I want people to walk away with an experience, a healing and an awareness to then move forward. Like, what's your next steps? What are you doing? And I see some really challenging situations with women, multiple miscarriage and just so confused and so heartbroken
Mhm.
and grief, or being on a conception journey that doesn't seem to be, resulting in anything. And so
Yeah.
I feel like I like to find the missing pieces and help people patch it together. And I see women in, people call them miracles, but I see women and men like have babies when they're doing kind of like when they're not when they're doing when they're being intuitive, but they're listening to their own connection to who they are and
Mhm.
navigating whether that's a natural conception or a creative conception.
Well, you brought up the nervous system, and I'm in some parenting classes right now. I'm in the JAI program, and we just did this huge unit on nervous system science. And that alone, I'm sure that has to do a whole lot with why people are having trouble conceiving, and because people just are not connected to their bodies, and they don't know how to regulate. And I'm sure that working with them, and that is just huge in helping them to, once they connect with their bodies, now they're hopefully a little more able to connect with their intuition also.
Yeah, I like the hopefully, but I say yes, absolutely. It's and our bodies can be so scary, right? Our bodies are like, especially if you've had a sick body, or if you've had, abuse or trauma, which most everybody has had some level of trauma, but it's like, if we're not working with it and identifying kind of our presence in the world now, then it becomes something else. And so, yeah, if somebody's in major dysregulation, it could be hard to find that connection. But I call people out on it. I go, here's the deal. Here's what I see.
Yeah.
Bam, bam, bam. And I go, but I feel like I come from a compassionate lens. So people get scared, like, oh, what is she going to say or do? But I really don't come from something scary or something too much. And so, yeah, that regulated nervous system, or even just knowing where your stuff is. I know where my stuff is. And the more that I go into it, then the more I bring it to the other people. I feel like I'm starting to get like a psychic sense of the nervous system, to be honest.
I could totally see that. I mean, once you're in tune to it, like I said, people just struggle with being in their bodies, period. And add all of the rest of the trauma and stuff to it. So it's just, yeah, it's definitely a journey. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how they communicate, how they show up. Because I'm curious, because I have a story of my own that I want to share, and I'm curious to see what you're going to think about that. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci, and today I'm talking with Kelly Ann Meehan. She is a spirit baby communicator. She is an author. She's a podcaster, and we're talking about connecting with the soul of your child prior to birth. Before we get into a ton of questions that I have, because I feel like a dozen, we probably won't get to all of them. Where can people connect with you?
Oh, you mean like where they could find my work?
Yes.
Okay. We're like, I'm talking about connection of baby. I was like, oh.
Yeah. No, in the interwebs. Where can they?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And my website is spiritbabymedium.com, but also Spirit Baby Medium is me. So at Spirit Baby Medium on Instagram, like there's so many, I'm the original Spirit Baby Medium, because I actually invented that word and term. So, that's the best way to find me, is through the website. And there's so much information there. I have journals and cards and fun things coming up.
And I have a note here that if they join your community, they could get free tools for connection, creatively conceiving, a journey with Spirit Baby, and Spirit Baby meditation.
Yeah, I believe you have that link. Yeah,
I have the link. The link is in.
Yeah,
it's in the. So if you need to go to the episode description on Transformation Talk Radio to connect with that link, and it will take you to. I think I tried to make it a live link, but if it's not, copy and paste and go over there and get those meditations. So before break, I was curious how babies communicate, because I, in my 20s, had no desire to have children. None. It was why would you? It was that all of the teenage angst rolling over into my 20s, like, why would I have a baby and bring a baby into this crazy world? And this, why would you do that? And right around 29, I was like, I need to have a baby right now. And it didn't feel like my biological clock. It felt like it was my purpose all of a sudden, like being a mother, which I had no interest in at all. Yeah, I didn't want to have kids. To be brutally honest, I didn't want to have kids, to being, I want to have a child, and I'm going to be all things mother, maternal to my children. So I think that was my oldest daughter edging me on to say, okay, it's time. I picked you. We said we were going to do this. What do you think?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, this is the thing. I feel like when it comes to communication, and I feel like I've mastered a lot of the different levels of where people are at to really tune in and to see how do people communicate? What is their connection? And it really does begin with the sensory system, really the beyond the senses of the body. Once you get in the body and you get clear with that, then there's this other vibrational space where we call it psychic space or feeling space or empath is I have a lot of people that feel like they sense their babies. They may not be visual, they may not see it. And I've noticed that babies can communicate through the outside world as well, through different symbols and things, as well as what you shared to me was like the clear knowing. Like,
Mhm.
where's this kind of push all of a sudden when you know, like you had a different feeling, but baby has a different feeling.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I used to joke when I was pregnant with my second. I said, I'm a vegetarian, but my baby's a meat eater. It's just like two different two
Yeah.
different souls and two different experiences. And so that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. But it's interesting because you get to be in the mystery of it and the curiosity with it. Because some things do feel unexplainable, but I feel like when we open up portals within ourselves to sit with possibility and to be just aware, then we get to see more. And I've had women come to me going, I have no communication, and they share a story with me, and I'm like, what did they just miss? Because they literally had communication, but sometimes our minds create such an expectation on what our
Mhm.
communication relationship is supposed to look like. And so how I connect and communicate may be different than someone else. And even I know I have worked with Spirit Baby Intuitives, is what I call them, as a mentor of students, and they all connect in different ways. They're not supposed to connect how I connect. But I also do this every week. So my psychic muscle is expanded.
Mhm.
I always joke and I'd say I live supernatural every day because I have experiences every day. There's not a day I don't, but I'm aware of that. I'm aware that there's this other unseen at times palpable energetic frequency, and I just listen to it. That's all. And then I see it visually. So let's say a baby's communicating with me. I sense the baby or more than one baby at times. Some people like that. Some people don't like that. But I also don't say who's coming, who's not coming, especially in conception. Sometimes it's a back and forth flow of energy between siblings. And sometimes it feels female and male, and other times it feels just like a baby being. There may not be an
Mhm.
attachment to gender. But how I see that, so I feel that, and I feel a distinct kind of personality, what I call the soul personality. I can even go deeper into like cosmic stuff of their what stars their maybe or what's maybe their mission and purpose and theme. It's a little mixed in between because there's a lot around that. And I typically do that in pregnancy, less in conception. Conception is getting the body right in the earth body right.
Mhm.
And so with pregnancy, kind of my connection, I kind of bring in this more playful, let's see what they want to share and say. And so I will see an image within my own mind's eye. I'll see an image of a child and sometimes their hair and eye color. And sometimes it is what they look like. Other times I'm not sure unless people tell me, right? Some
Mhm.
people I stay connected with and other times I don't. And so again, bringing it back to your communication is your communication, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
And even if you're just kind of like, what is that? Or I don't know, or it's really about you trusting that connection. And that's the beauty of it, because there's so much trust being asked of men and women in the conception journey, in pregnancy, and especially now, and especially in the birth system, which, again, the birth advocate is how women are treated in pregnancy, and just the disembodiment even there. And then what are we doing for the next generations of children that are being born into situations that are already traumatizing, you
So
know?
yeah, that leads me to another question that I was going to ask farther down, but this is a good place to ask it. So, um, do you have any uh, do you have any feeling that the children that are incarnating now are possibly at a higher frequency, than what we are, in this dense plane, earth plane? And that, because I kind of believe one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being a parent coach is because feel like I really kind of want to pave the way for the change makers that are
Mm.
going to be born, like my grandchildren. And I'm curious if that's the case. Like, are these souls that are coming in now, are they coming in to, to help awaken the planet, to change our planet, to help heal our planet?
So I feel like, yes, they are. I mean, there's an accuracy in that every, I don't want to say decade, but every so often in cycles of consciousness, there is going to be new opportunities, new places to grow and develop. And, as I've been doing this for years and connecting with a lot of different beings, there are different things that do come up about what we'll call it their, I don't want to call it their sole purpose. Sound like maybe like a theme. Like,
Mhm.
because I do feel like we do come in with themes, right? We do come in with certain things that are really us, like people, and we know, oh, that's the peacekeeper, or that person is the healer, or
Mhm.
there kind of are these that, or the teacher, but not that you have to be pinned. I don't
Mhm.
want to pin our children to be like, well, they're the healer, but I have had children where I'm just like, oh my gosh, their healing quality is so profound to me. And I'm witnessing it in this exchange. And I'm like, this little child is going to heal some part of the world and consciousness because that's their purpose, not because their mom or dad wants them to be a doctor or wants
Mhm.
them to be the advocate. And so I do feel like there are these next beings that I'm being curious and open to because I question my limitation, right? If I don't grow, how can I see and really expand into what that level is as well? And I can really speak from my own little family tree. I have a 4-year-old, and I'm coming into these deep realizations about him when I first met him and I held him in my living room. I birthed him on purpose. And I remember bringing him up to me and then feeling my mouth against his crown and his body. And I felt like his soul was nothing I knew.
Mm.
I was like, I don't know. And then when he looked at me, it was different than my first son. And I think also because I did so much more healing in between the first, I feel like firstborns, it's a little intense because they're paving the way. And so the
Absolutely.
second born, I literally had a realization yesterday. He's so loving and so pure. And I realized that he has no trauma. He wasn't born into trauma. I
Mm.
was a
Mm.
lot, like even my birth story. And so with that, I'm going, how can me be conscious enough to hold my own trauma and seeing him as trauma free is really, I mean, I'm being really intimate now because I didn't even think I'd share this. It's so profound for me right now. I'm not sure where it's sitting because
Mm.
I've only known how to take care of trauma with my mother and with that. And so when I have this pure being that has a completely different purpose and intention, which I'm still learning because and to feel and connect with that love is very different for me. And also don't want to, this is where the parenting stuff is. I don't want to reject them, like, because where's my capacity to hold that space from even my
Yeah.
own inner infant?
Yeah. Wow, that's profound. Yeah. Would you say that not just trauma free, but maybe karma free even?
I feel like there's something in there when
Yeah.
we've heard these rumors, but there's a truth to the rumors. And yeah, so each kind of influx of consciousness and change will create different beings, absolutely. And I know people were scared in 2020, like Kelly, the pandemic, what does this mean? I'm scared. And it's like, it's okay. These beings know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Just trust yourself, go into your heart. You're here on earth. It's a different reality. And so just trust that these beings are going to come. They want to be born because they are restructuring our consciousness, our bodies. We could even look at timelines of history, right? Going, look how where we've come into, and people are, I feel like, are more awakened and outspoken, even outspoken, like women and people of color, like all these different things coming up
Mhm.
to bring back the humanness, the
Yeah.
compassion, the love, and more.
It's just stuff blows my mind. It really blows my mind. It's just like y- we are on a precipice of change, and you can see it and you can feel it. And I do believe that the pandemic was part of that, unfortunately. But anyway, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to know what babies look for in parents, like pre-birth contracts, if they're looking for, certain skills or certain qualities, and like what, like I think my daughter once said to me, she's like, I think there was a long line for you and I had to get to the front of the line. All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project, and we'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. Today, I am talking with spirit baby medium Kelly Ann Meehan, and we're talking about, before the break, we were talking about the change makers, the karma-free, the trauma-free, the babies who want to be born right now, and how they're going to impact our world. Um, but so with that in mind, so a little bit about pre-birth contracts. I do believe that before we're born, we have a contract with our parents and this is another thing to think about when we talk about spirit babies. You might call it spirit babies, but they're really just just souls, right? We're ageless, right? And but they're still babies that want to come in. They have to come in that way. And uh, so have you noticed in the work that you do that there is like a connection between the mother's experience or some of the knowledge or skills that the mom and the dad have to why a baby wants them? I mean, does any of that pre-birth contract stuff sort of pop up when in your work?
Well, so I know there's this kind of set idea, and I feel like a lot of people have, the soul, and then there's a contract, and I don't really go into contracts because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like things have so many possibilities of change, right? And one contract could be completely void in the middle of a birth and a baby could die, not to
Mhm.
be the bummer, but it happens, right? But then people feel like, well, what that contract felt like that baby was meant to be born. So it brings in this whole other connection conversation. But what
Mhm.
I could speak even from a contract level, I'm going to take it a little bit to birth loss, is that I do see that there is an intentional purpose and connection to not being an earth body, to not being here in this time. And what I like to really connect with parents when I'm doing that, when I'm having that conversation, is it's not one thing, it's
Mhm.
many things. There's many pieces to that connection and what unfolds and what becomes of it. And so, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is some level of contracts, but I don't get a lot of people really asking about that or what the details are around that. So I don't know if I could do justice for a deeper conversation around that. And I love like these stories where babies now are kids, like, hey, mommy was in your belly. Or
Mhm.
I hear these really fun things quite often, and it's in so many different books nowadays that children know, they remember, like, hey, or like, like how, having to be born, like, really wanting to get out there or ready to be born. And you see that. And it's funny because it makes me think about my birth. And I was told by some intuitive years and years ago, you just did not want to come here, Kelly. You were like raising your hands in the back, like, please don't pick me, right? So then, I was like, it makes a lot of sense because I always feel like I was put into my family and I was like, I always thought they adopted me, to be honest, because I just I had a different level of consciousness and a different sensory system. And they had a lot of trauma. So it was hard for them to be present for themselves. And so I have to tell you, because when I was born, it was a non-labored cesarean breech, which means non-labored. So that's kind of shocking because I didn't have any preparation, right? Because that's how it was going to be. I didn't want to come. And then
Right.
I was breech. I was making it difficult, right? Feet first. And then the cesarean, of course, because it was like, okay, this is how we're coming out to the world. And so um, I don't have any like contract memory myself, right? So I can't really speak from that, but I do have memory of um, of of womb space and even after that and what my body tells me now, right?
Mm.
Because I do feel like our inner infants are always with us and they act out in our world in relationships in different ways. So yeah, so that's what I could say about
So
that piece.
if this is too personal, you can just tell me it's too personal. But I was telling a story in break, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it again because what I've noticed is the deliveries of each of my three daughters are so connected to their personalities. And like I said, so my oldest was born on her due date in a 9-hour labor and was in such a hurry to get out. She caught her shoulder on me, and so I was injured, and all of the trauma that comes with that. She was perfectly happy because she got out, which was her goal. And then my second daughter was born right around her due date, but they had to induce me. And because she just didn't want to come out. She was happy and cozy. And she was just like, I hate change and I like it here and I'm not going to come out. She was 23 hours labor.
Mm.
And then my third daughter, I finally had an epidural that worked. And so it was really easy. And they had, I maybe because it was my third child, they invited all these interns and residents and paramedics and stuff into can they watch your baby being born? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. So she had an audience, and it's just like
Her personality.
Yes.
I love that. You have an accuracy to that because birth psychology, right? Birthpsychology.com really supports that whole everything you're saying. They go into that, and there's even books there are books. I mean, they're a little intense. I have some books about like the cesarean born. Only from I didn't deliver cesarean, but my entrance into the world in the 70s wasn't very positive, and even after that, it didn't get more positive. And so, which is why I'm doing a lot of the nervous system work now. But then I question, this makes it more clear why I do the work that I do, right? Because you're like, well, what is the spirit? I was like, and then it comes more and more clear is to really, how can we create spiritual connections before life, to de-traumatize ourselves, to get an intuition, to really hold the space of love and be held by that. And so I think about my two births. My first son wasn't very positive. It was a home birth transfer, which was ambulance, lights. This is my child's first experience. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get all this therapy as an infant. I did craniosacral, like, all this stuff. I'm like, what is happening here? And there's so much more to that story and why it happened, because there's nothing wrong, to be honest, that there was something in between, which is a long conversation. But his first birth experience was, maybe he'll have more. It was, not what I would have wanted for him. Yeah. And yet it is going to form his personality because that's our foundation. Mm-hmm. But the beauty is we get to recognize it. We don't have to be trapped by it, but the lack of awareness with it is, can create emotional, mood, mental, just, ADD, whatever this sickness, autoimmune stuff, like all this stuff really is foundational, is what I'm feeling more and more and what I'm seeing within myself and others. And so with my second, it was so different. I was terrified. I had a lot of processing to do. I was terrified of just the idea of having another child because of the first one, which is common, right? And so, but I did a lot of work around it because I already had a child. So it was like, that was the work. And I birthed him, like I said, intentionally, a home birth, which was so incredible and amazing to just be giving birth. And I barely felt any pain, and it was kind of orgasmic, but that's a whole other, I was not expecting that at all. And I felt psychic messages from him. I was not expecting that at all. And it was like such night and day experiences. And when he was born, and my husband was the first one to catch him. And then he was I have a video of me pulling like this, and I look up and I'm like, just breathing. And if you look in the camera, there's white orbs around the room, which is
so like cool.
I'm going, whoa, because you didn't see them. And then and then he's there and he's crying, and I'm just kind of like, just waiting to see I'm like this rush of, and then just who is he, And then it was beautiful. I got to go to my bedroom and be cared for, and just nurse with him, and just look at my window at the beautiful trees, and really bring a level of healing, to be honest, that first experience didn't bring. It wasn't my intention, but it did. And it continues to. I feel like we can always build and repair our connections with ourselves, with our inner infant, with our own birth experiences. But coming back to what you said, our birth does mold kind of our interaction with the world. And it's beautiful that, Susan, even going, well, that's her personality. That's her personality. It's like, yes, the soul personality, it makes sense. And so but you to be aware of it, that's the beauty of it. You're aware of it. You see it, like, what a gift it is, even for your children, to know that you're like, oh, I'm really aware of that. But there are, like I said, there is information, research, and data that really does go deeper into that space of how we're born. And again, I feel like that's probably why I do what I do, right? Because I know that people can get really beautiful connections with their babies and have healing experiences, and then raise intuitive, conscious future humans for the world.
Yeah. Amen to that. Like, isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we, I guess, that's what I want as a parent. That's what I want for other parents, but they still have choice. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, I'm curious about are babies attached to the outcome? And I also want to spend a little bit more time talking about loss because I also did have a miscarriage. And we will talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project, and we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. You are listening to the Awakened Parent Project, where we have conscious conversations and we're empowering parents. And today I'm talking with spirit baby medium Kelly Meehan, and you can find her over at spiritbabymedium.com. Is that right?
Correct.
That's right. So I want to know, because we were talking about, I said before break, I had a miscarriage. So I have two questions. And I know I probably shouldn't make them yes or no questions. First question is, are babies attached to the outcome?
The outcome of that you're
No, so
or
like,
them?
yeah, so like, do they know that they might incarnate in a, a embryo or baby fetus
Yes.
that's going to miscarry, and that's part of the lesson for the mother, or part, something to do with the karma for that soul that's about to be born? I mean, are they, or let's just say there's a termination. Like, are they attached to the outcome, or are they just?
Well, I feel like we're attached to the outcome. And
Yeah.
so in a soul form, it's an experience for them. And there is a purpose, right? There's purpose to the individual going through that. And there's a purpose to the actual person, the couple, even at times, especially with miscarriage. It's a very interesting energy, and it's very common, actually.
Well, because I had a miscarriage between my second and third child, and it was fairly late. I was at 16 weeks, so not fairly late, but I mean, not
Yeah.
early, first trimester miscarriage. And I just remembered, like, I believed without any doubt that, okay, this will be the next child, like that this soul's going to come back to me, just because this, whatever happened, that this baby wasn't meant to be born here. But I believed that my Elizabeth was that same soul. Is that, what do you
I
think
feel
about
like you're very accurate about that, because this is very common. And this is where the intuitive instinctual piece comes in, is that there's a lot of stories too out there in books and the internet where people feel like that child was the same. And sometimes those children confirm it. I want to say in one of these books, there was a little girl who was the mother never spoke of her abortion, and the little girl spoke about it in detail, and it was like, so like she was not supposed to know that, because she was speaking very innocently from her own experience.
that? Mm-hmm.
And so of course in earth time it's very hard to like take in. And I know with miscarriages are really big, is that women always question it was their fault
Mm-hmm.
or the blame. It's like that's like 100% automatic feelings going to come up, but there's so many other pieces to the why to that, and it's very individual. When I'm like looking at the energy field, or I'm looking at like the past energies, it's very different for everybody. There's never anything that's the same. But what I really try to promote is, what's the next step? What is that connection with that child? How did it make you feel? What spiritual energy did it bring up when that happened? Because there's light and then it's gone, and then it brings up so much more around that. And so a lot of times, yeah, it's very it's a unit of energy. It's not like, oh well, it's the dad's fault, it's the mom's fault, it's the baby's fault. It's very collaborative, but some children have a hard time coming into this atmosphere. And I even questioned that with my mom. My mom had infertility before she had 3 children, and she said she lost a girl. And I'm like, she had multiple miscarriages. She had a few miscarriages before my older brother was born. But I was like, I wonder if that was me. Like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, maybe, but was her experience. She had a lot of trauma. So it was meant to bring her a level of healing. But if she was too traumatized or unaware of herself, then it brings in something different, right?
Mhm.
And so without shaming whatever that difference is, I feel like it's always about compassion and what we could bring even to women in that space to continue to hold them, to be with their grief, to work with it. I feel like it's the unwinded energy of death because as I speak about, we embody death and creation within us, and to be in that space. So I don't doubt your connection. Yes, there is that babies do come back, and sometimes they don't.
Mm.
Sometimes they don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, miscarriages, I think I think maybe we're starting to come around now to understanding uh, how to grieve them and not just to like, oh, sweep it under the rug sort of thing. Like, oh, it wasn't going to be a baby. It was something happened. It's for the best.
Mhm.
Those things like,
The
you know,
no-nos.
yeah, yeah. And because I remember I was alone when I found out. I went in for an ultrasound, and I mean, there was, we had a baby, there was a heartbeat. I was 16
Mhm.
weeks along and went in for a regular checkup. Actually, it wasn't an ultrasound. I went in for a regular checkup and he couldn't find a heartbeat. And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to send you down for an ultrasound. This happens sometimes. And, um, and so luckily, by that point, I was good friends with the ultrasound tech and having had two kids. And, um, and so she had to tell me,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay. And I remember driving home and crying and just like thinking, how am I gonna tell my husband? How am I gonna tell the
Mhm.
kids? How? Because at that far along, like I'm I honor I honor women who and I know a few of them who get to 36 weeks and and have a stillbirth, and so but it's all traumatic.
Mhm.
It's just one isn't worse than the other, but and I remember waking up. I was like, okay, I'm fine. I cried, I grieved, explained everything to the kids, but it was like 3 or 4 days later. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, my baby's not here. And it
Yeah.
was just that feeling of, so it wasn't just, I think there is something like there is that soul connection. And like the baby wasn't, my baby was gone, not just in the physical
Mhm.
incarnation, but the spirit, the soul of that baby was also gone.
Mhm.
And that leads me to what's probably going to be my last question, but because we're getting close to the end here. And you might not know the answer to this, but um, I can't remember what book I was reading that was talking about it. It might have been Rob Schwartz. But do the souls of babies connect right away, or do they kind of flit in and out before their birth? Like, is there a connection and they stay there and there's a bond, or do they kind of like have to do it gradually to test the waters or test the density of being in a body?
Are you talking about like pregnancy specific?
Yeah, like so if a woman is pregnant
Okay.
with a baby and there's a soul connection, does that happen at conception or around like I don't want to get
Yeah,
into that, or because I kind of feel like
I know what you're
um
saying.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying because I get this question many times throughout the years. And when babies are multidimensional, a soul, like you said earlier, it's really a person, right? It's not a baby, but it's how we come into Earth, and probably for a good reason. And so the soul is very multi-level. Like the frequency of the soul can be many places at once.
Hmm.
And so I feel like when I'm working with pregnant women, because I see the baby around the body all the time, the baby doesn't have to be bound to the body, but there is an essence and connection to that body. It's not like it's separate. I've seen babies go to grandma, go to uncle, but I was like, how can the baby then be with the dad, with you in pregnancy, and with the aunt and uncle all at the same time? Because we are so limited in our thoughts, we don't fully comprehend that. We do have to sit with ourselves to feel the multidimensionalness. And even something else you said too is babies, like let's say there's loss and they're in and out of different connections. Even in conception, there's frequencies that are always changing. And so it's kind of like if I took levels of steps, and let's say you're on this one step and the baby's on that other step, you may not be meeting frequencies. And this happens even in pregnancy. It doesn't have to be like, well, it's in birth loss or conception only. And so when we're elevating into our own consciousness, which is a very unique journey, then baby does too. I've actually seen that recently, especially now in this time we're in, where some moms are like giving away their power. And I see these little beings coming in, really strong light force of energy that is like changing the vibration of their parents, really based on their parents' will too. It's not like they're,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, but it's interesting to see that recently, even the past few weeks, as I'm going, whoa, what is this? What is this power? Because these parents are calling in their children. It's not just one-sided. It's not, I'm ready to be a mother, I'm ready to be a parent, let's do this, let's create a family. But there's so many powerful things that can happen along the way, and really profound, maybe even experiences that are hard to even put into words for people. But I do feel like, yeah, there's, coming back to, I hope I answered that.
Yeah, no, you did.
Yeah,
You did.
okay.
That's because, yes, you validated me, which that's what I wanted this whole podcast to be about, was you just validating my beliefs.
Well, it's good. You're inquisitive, you're intuitive, you're kind of connecting and just discovering. But my kind of philosophy is always to leave space for the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to, that's why certain things that are said in spirit world, I feel like, spirit baby is yeah, it goes into the new age community and it can be metaphysical, but I feel like it's instinctual. It's a science to it. There's a foundation. Like, how do we, like, in more indigenous cultures and tribes, it's normal to have that natural connection to spirit before life, but in more developed, it's a little different.
Yeah. Thank you so much for today. This is an interview I've wanted to have for so long. I've been so excited. So, because this is just, I'm just really super passionate about connecting with the souls of our children and parenting from a soulful place. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
And you can find Kelly at spiritbabymedium.com. If you are interested in learning about any of my coaching options, offers, you can go find me at susandolci.com. And I want you to remember, please remember, parenting isn't about perfection. You're human. That's impossible. Conscious parenting is about allowing your children to be your awakening. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thank you for being a part of the Awakened Parent Project. My goal with this show is to help us all become more compassionate and engaged parents by diving into the many techniques and ideologies of the conscious parenting community. This is a safe space to embark on a practical and spiritual journey of self-exploration and expand our ideas about conscious parenting. Got thoughts, questions, ideas? I want to hear from you. Reach out to me if there's a topic you'd like to hear covered on the show, or to share your conscious parenting story by visiting susandolci.com.